Hello and welcome to Apples and Snakes at Home. We are in series 3, episode 3. We are up north this week. Welcome. Hopefully you've been joining us over the past couple of weeks where we have gone from the Midlands down to London, but now we've gone up to maybe the best part of the country. And I say that as someone who's lived south all her life. If you are new with us today, series 3 from Apples and Snakes will focus on the theme of home, with us exploring the idea of belonging in the increasingly fragmented world. All the programming has been focused on Black and brown artists, something that I'm really pleased and happy with, scattered across the country, who may feel at home in more than one place or identity. This episode will feature performances from 2 of my absolute favourite poets, favourite Black women, favourite people generally out and about, Malika Booker and Keisha Thompson. I'm really pleased to have you both with us today, plus a specially commissioned poem from Yussuf M'Rabty. Malika, Keisha, how are you?
Fine.
Good. Hi.
Keisha, where are you coming from today?
I'm in Manchester.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Quite sunny actually today.
Really?
Yeah.
What's going on? Malika?
I'm in Leeds and it's very sunny. It's so warm that in my house I've got this on, which if anybody knows me, I'm usually in fleeces and layers even in my house. It's lovely and warm. The guy who just delivered my parcel was wearing shorts.
Which is a sign. Although sometimes people wear shorts and I feel very, especially when I've been up north, I have to say, like there's a lot of shorts and skirts and low tops and I feel like a cold grandma. I'm really happy to be here with both of you today, and I'm really pleased that we have 2 Black female writers who have both been based in the north for a really long time, but obviously I guess being in Manchester or Leeds may not be the only place you consider home, so I guess I might just ask you that to start. Malaika, where is home? Easy question to start.
Home is Brixton.
Mm-hmm.
Home is St. George's, Victorian Grenada. Home is Brooklyn. Home is Ogle in Guyana. And now home is Chapeltown. But the other day I was thinking I actually consider myself a Brixtonian. If you had to ask me, like, you know, what do I consider myself? I consider myself a kind of bona fide Brixtonian. Lockdown helped me clarify that. So I'm a kind of West Indian, Caribbean, diasporic, British woman.
Excellent. And how long have you been in Leeds now?
Coming on 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also don't think like I'm in Leeds. I'm actually in Chapeltown. I think I love living in kind of like areas where large Caribbean communities are. So even when I was in London, I didn't feel like I lived in London. I lived in Brixton, you know, and I find these places very special. So for me, I'm becoming, you know, a Chapeltown girl. And I know Chapeltown, but ask me about Leeds, I know nothing. I just know how to get to the train station and how to get to the university. That's it.
Perfect. I mean, I have to say, when I've been to Chapeltown, I felt very at home as someone who grew up around places like Brixton and Peckham. So I understand those connections. Keisha, what about you? What's home? Where's home?
So I suppose I've got kind of the other side of the spectrum in terms of an experience. Because for me, I've been in Manchester my whole life. I've not really moved, even in my house. I've been in my house, my family house, my whole life. And I was brought up with this feeling of being a Guyanese child, though. So in my house, it feels like Guyana. And I used to step outside and be like, oh, what's this food? And why is everyone speaking like that? And whatever. But when I actually went to Guyana when I was 5, I tried my best to be Guyanese, but it was very clear that I was British. I ran around with my shoes off and everything. I got ringworm and like nature did not like me. I got attacked by the mosquitoes real quick. And yeah, so I've tried my best to find home in other places, but I'm just very aware that my home is actually Manchester, my little house in South Manchester, and I've been there my whole life. But I do love exploring, like I do love traveling. And there are various places where I've been to and thought, oh, I could probably settle here, I could probably live here, but I've not had that want to yet. I've not necessarily felt like uprooting myself.
I have to say, Keisha, that one, like everybody who grows up in Guyana gets ringworm and attacked by mosquitoes, so you're Guyanese. And two, when I came to Guyana, from Guyana to my mum's family, which is a Grenadian household, it was the same thing. Outside was Brixton, and when you closed that door, you were in Grenada. And I say that a lot because, you know, yeah. And my aunt would say, when you close that door, you're in Grenada.
Yeah, I get that a lot, especially one thing that I really like, and it's something that I'm starting to see more in like films and TV, but less, is something I didn't grow up seeing, was just getting a chance to explore the world through other people's just houses. Like as in inside my house, it was in Ghana, but I'd go to someone else's house and I was in Somalia, or I'd go to someone else's house and I was in Jamaica, and I'd go to someone else's house and I was in Nigeria. And that felt very much like, oh wow, all of these places can exist in this small patch of the city. And yeah, I think it's why school was so much fun quite a lot at the time, because you had this sort of clash of people bringing parts of their home to this weird space where we were supposed to learn, but actually spent quite a lot of time doing nothing. And on that note, is school home a question? Anyway, I think it might be time to hear some poems. Keisha, I will start with you. I haven't heard you read in a while. It's been, I'm like so ready, and so are the people at home, I imagine. If you have not heard Keisha Thompson read before, you're in for a treat. She is a Manchester-based writer, performance artist, and producer. She has supported artists such as Kay Tempest, Holly McNeish, The Last Poet, Saul Williams, and Miri Baraka, and has performed in Brave New Voices festivals. Her work has been presented at high-profile venues and platforms like the Tate Modern or the Blue Dot Festival. And in August, Keisha released a new album, Ephemera, in collaboration with Tom Worker-Leah and featuring riveting cellist Abel Selicho. She recently was also a finalist for the Arts Foundation Theatre Makers Award, which is something that I am really excited about, because I looked at that shortlist and it included people like Selena Thompson and people who I just really absolutely loved. I've forgotten the entire shortlist now, but I remember looking at it and being blown away by the people on that list, and being really excited that I would be watching her read some work in a few days. Keisha, take it away.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction. It was interesting putting this set together actually, because I've picked poems that I don't usually share, or that I've not shared before from my collection, in trying to think about home. I took it very literally and tried to think about poems where I'm actually situated in like a room in my house, or like a specific place in the house. And this first piece is called Shave, and it's from my first solo show, which is called I Wish I Had a Mustache. So it's literally like 10 years old. Have you ever asked your mum to shave your back? Twisted yourself into a spiral in front of the mirror, trying to know the ugliness lurking behind you like a kick me sign from God? One girl asked if it's because I'm half Muslim, but how can you be half Muslim? Everyone in school knew. The news spread like playground whispers, an eggy fart, Pokemon cards. Their heads, they bobbed together like dandelions, pulled faces and laughter, popping candy on outstretched tongues. I just gave harder Chinese burns and WWF moves, and your mum jokes like, yeah, I'm hairy, but your mum's so ugly, she took a bath and the water jumped out, and then your mum, she's so fat, she wears the equator as a belt, and your mum, she's so tall, she did a cartwheel and kicked Jesus out of the sky. When I went to tie my laces, I had to find a wall to brace against, and roly-polies felt different, like that day when I noticed that McDonald's chips just taste of nothing. Why do people always feel the need to comment on your body, as though you don't see yourself every single day? Sometimes I stand naked in front of a misted mirror, fingers rearranging my face, trying to be someone else. So after trying to shave alone, I asked my mum to help me, pretty pleased with chocolate sprinkles, strawberry sauce and a cherry on top, and she said no. So I washed the dishes, gave her sardines and hibiscus tea in bed. I tried to give her a kiss on the cheek and she said, don't come to me with your Judas self. And I didn't even complain when she asked me to get the phone and then the address book and then her glasses when she could have asked me to get all three in one go. But some days she just stared through me like my daddy was a glass maker. And then that day, she looked at me hard, face like the pointer broom that we used to brush the porch before finally giving in. And then that night, I saw my mum cry for the first time. Her tears were brighter than the blood that seeped out of that serpentine cut at the right of my spine. The next one I'm going to share is called Foreboding, and this one belongs to the kitchen. My mum said she dreamt fish, live fish, stood in the market eyeing up the snapper, the bangmei, the trout on one side, the howie, the patois and the hassa on the other. And my sister and I exchanged glances like sisters do. To an outsider, this is that mundane talk, that morning talk between opening the fridge aimlessly, then on the third attempt, just grabbing the milk. But everyone in this family has been preempted by my mum's otherworldly trips to the fish market. Last time, Auntie called to share the good news. And if it comes from anyone else, then yeah, it's good news. And I pray for the phone to ring and count the days since my last period. And then my sister asks what it means if you dream dead fish. What if you dream that you scaled it, chopped its head off, and fried it down in oil?
Oh, that was so great. Oh, I feel just transported. Thank you. Also really amused by the fact that, because I haven't heard those poems. You said that, and I have a poem about frying fish, and Malaika has a poem about fish as well. Maybe we should do an anthology of poems about mothers and aunties and fish, and I think do quite well. What's really nice is, I guess in the first piece, I was talking about school and how school and home interacts, and you just talked about that, which is a really nice coincidence. But then you took us to that thing about how far home relates with food, which is just a huge thing, I think, for most people from second generation immigrant backgrounds. I say that in particular just because I think for a lot of us, that's the first thing we go to, in a way that I think, not that my mum doesn't go to that as an immigrant, as a first generation immigrant, but I think when you're a little bit more removed from your heritage, food is just this really easy way to connect. And it's something that I think is so important for all of us, right?
Yeah, I agree. Really. I think it's something that I almost find to be a cliche in my work, and I have to be really mindful of it, because as you said, it's so easy. My go-to is to make a metaphor or make a reference to food, and I really have to make sure that I'm pushing myself in terms of my references. But it's very much the way that I've learned about myself and learned about other cultures, and it's definitely the place that I go to as a place of care. Like if I'm looking after someone or I want to get to know them, immediately I'm like, what food do you eat? Or have you eaten? Or share this or try this or whatever. So yeah, I think definitely there's such a strong link between using food to give you a sense of yourself, and to then get to know other people. I remember a teacher telling me that, she was like, who goes home and just opens the cupboards and doesn't get anything out, but you just open the cupboards or you open the fridge and you just look. And then you close the fridge. And we were like, yeah. And they're like, it's just a sense of comfort. It just kind of, it's a reassurance. It's the first thing to just go, oh, where's the food? Okay, cool. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really interesting.
And comfort is the word, right? Like, I remember when this whole COVID stuff started kicking off, and I wasn't going into like full hoard level, but I'm just someone who always needs to have food in my house, despite the fact that I'm not a big cook, really. Like, there's a few things that I can cook in a big way if I have to. If I'm forced into the African party cooking like circle, I can do a couple of things and that's fine. But I just found myself, as my anxiety was rising, like just buying more stuff, because that's what I always do. I need to make sure that, I don't know, I don't even think it's if everything closes I need to feed myself, but I just need to have that to feel safe. And my mum does that, and my aunties do that, and I'm sure loads of us do that as well.
Yeah, for sure. When lockdown happened, we didn't have to go to the shop. I've always said to people, I'm safe in my house. It's a bunker. Like, we've got tins for days. We got chickpeas, we got tomatoes, we can make chana, I'm good. I was like, I'm good. I'm under the stairs, we've got the toilet paper. We were fine. I've not got any anti-bac. Like, standardly, like, that stuff was there for sure. And I do think that is a thing of coming from a migrant family. And I really enjoy that. I think there's sometimes shame around that, but I really bask in my mum's resourcefulness, and it just gives me massive comfort. I'm like, this woman has known how to live in such a different circumstance in a country where the resource was spare, like sparse. And if she can do that, then she'll come here and we're abundant. I always feel rich in my house. I feel so wealthy, and it's not because we're not middle class, but we know how to use money, and we know how to enjoy food, and just have wealth, and have skills, and share, and have things in the house that make us feel good, unlike shoestring budgets.
That's beautiful. That is lovely. I was joking with a friend where people were like running into the Tesco down our road, and it was like and it was all pasta and stuff. And I was like, you know, you might be going to hoard pasta. I always have like a 30-kilo bag of rice and those like £3 bag of onions. We are not the same. Just in case, because, you know, I could buy 3 onions for 50p, or I could buy like a bag. Do I end up eating anyway? I really love this idea of being wealthy in the house. That's beautiful. Any more poems for us, I think?
I do. So I've just got a few short ones from my collection. It's called Luna. I'll just wrap it up like that.
A little flash. Wonderful.
I've got a series of fibs in the book that like follow the Fibonacci sequence. So this one's fib 34. It's called Inheritance. Hand-me-down genes, second-hand heritage. I was blessed with a wealth of knowledge. Some call me old soul. I breathe clove oil, I kiss my teeth. Flitting feats of avarice come criticism at their futile wills. All motherland, myth, migration, mildew, melancholy, and no mortgage. British. I chew on this unwatered privilege until it tastes like tolerance. Fib 1. Omniscient. Thuds from our letterbox could mean anything. Plato, or yoga cards, or IQ puzzles, or chessboard, books about medicine, or quantum physics, or computer programming, or lucid dreaming. I tried to take it all in, failing. Then comes a Sonic CD. My dad wants to be current. Evidence he is not all-knowing after all. Next one is called Stationary Point. He rang the bell today, cast his shadow like a Jehovah's Witness as I froze. Held my breath. It belonged to a memory, an 8-year-old birthday party, a game of grandma's footsteps, my achy legs, Balanced in an unanticipated position, I heard him open the porch door as my knees pivoted to the pretense of absence. Door closed. His shadow retreated. My bent back recalibrated a return to adulthood. I'm sorry. I didn't feel like being his daughter today. I know the extremity of knowledge babbling like a fountain. I wasn't thirsty. There is a constant pull of gravity on his thoughts, apples to someone willing to play Newton, and I won't always sit and wait under this tree for sustenance. Love can be an intrusion. Today, I stood over the toilet sink, fingers down my throat. In the evening, I confronted it, a bulging book bag from a madrasa. It came with me to the charity bin outside of the precinct. Let's hope it goes to a homeless white supremacist. The next one is Fib 144. I've not got 144 fibs. I followed the Fibonacci sequence to name the fibs. This one's called Threats. Dad, hands holding books wrapped in plastic. Oh, I'm going to start again. Sorry. Dad, hands holding books wrapped in elastic bands. I pull at them like guitar strings. His thumb twitches as he implores, protect these sacred things. Mum hands it all back to him. Sick of those book thuds, annotations, and odd banknotes. Grow up, Mr. Thompson. Not a soup kitchen. Listen. Ad infinitum, their tongues hang like pendulums as acid reflux renders me dumb, my hands shaking, misquoting book thuds as gunshots. Is this when words stop being words? Shadows caught between door frames, dripping like petrol through a letterbox. I pull at the sellotape. I seal up the letterbox. I know stories of his temper. A car door flung open mid-drive, mum on the roadside. I don't want to play this honor game. I am no match for a lonely man's rage. Thank you.
It's beautiful. Well, there's something so funny about the Zoom gig. I'm just like, where's the masses? Where's the applause? Help. Yeah, that was lovely. I'd love to hear more about where the sequence came from and how you thought of that and the Fibonacci sequence, and what came first?
So I wrote this book alongside my play, Man on the Moon, and it's about my relationship with my dad. And he loves maths, he loves science, he loves factual things. So when I was putting the book together, I had to think about all the things that we have in common, the things that we love, that we share, and a lot of it is maths based. So I was just trying to think of the things that I'm aware of or that would challenge me formally in constructing the poetry, and I'd not written any fibs before. So I was like, I'm going to explore that. So that's why I decided to do this series of fibs. It was really enjoyable going through that discipline because I found myself during that process writing everything in that sequence, like poems that weren't even supposed to be fibs. I'd count the syllables and I was like, oh, they started to be fibs anyway.
Like a simple explainer if someone doesn't know what
yeah, so it's a sequence that is aligned with the golden ratio. It's found a lot in nature. I can't remember the formula now, but basically it goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. So basically the two numbers beforehand, you add them up and it gives you the next number. So 1, 1, 2, and then 1 and 2 makes 3, 2 and 3 makes 5, and then 3 and 5 makes 8. And it continues like that, and it's exponential. But what's beautiful about the sequence is you actually find it in nature a lot. So like I was saying, the golden ratio, if you were to like look at plants and flowers and fractal patterns, and when you look at the ratios and how they relate to each other, it follows this sequence of numbers. So it's a very intriguing sequence in that it actually feels to be embedded if you're a spiritual person, it seems to kind of pertain to that kind of thinking.
Yeah, beautiful. I guess it's like finding, I always feel really, really, as someone who's not mathematical at all, finding those patterns in the world just gives me so much comfort. And it's definitely something that I associate with my mum, and like my aunties who are religious but also very spiritual in a way that connects with the land in a way that I really admire. Even my most like Catholic aunties in Ghana still have a spiritual connection beyond religion to like the land they're in and the things around them, and all of those patterns just that they see and they can just absorb. I don't know, that gives me a sense of home when I go to Ghana, when I'm just hanging out with them when they're in church or whatever. Like the music and the poetry of it, it's lovely. Those poems were beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. More, please.
Yeah. Got two more.
Two more, great.
This one's called Step Dinner. What would I be called if I had to play Snow White? Honey Brown? Bit too blaxploitation, maybe. My name needs to have romance or innocence. This is how my brain is choosing to respond to this situation. Fiction is my only way in. Stepmom. I've actually got a villain. Well, at this moment, she's just a rotund woman. A dog-tooth headscarf, a plate full of unleavened bread. The air is unleavened. I can't see any poisoned apples. Maybe she's poisoned the olives. My dad is a footnote, a small number levitating above us. At any moment, he could provide the foundation, a wonderful analysis, if only we'd grant him the attention. Is caramel more innocent than honey? Am I innocent? I didn't ask for any of this. I'm not eating. It's not a protest. Through improvised gestures, I tell her about my lunch with my mum. Dad is teaching her English. She smiles, holds her stomach before she sits, words like rose water droplets, a clicking radiator, peeling wallpaper, boxes of computer parts, pillars of dusty books. One of them now hosts a bowl of potpourri, as though it should be a trophy. The last one I'll do is called Adam's Apple. It's about my little brother. The apple has no choice in the matter. Gravity and mass dictate when it falls. Some apples are destined for Newtonian beginnings, whilst others drop and bruise, festering in the shadow of bark. You were blessed with momentum, rolling away from your roots, exposing the weakness of these forces. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but I witnessed you rolling, and I willed you along, chanting your name like a mantra or a prayer or a slogan, something that these burdened lips could muster, something familiar, something that made me feel like I was your sister. I wonder who picked your name. They named you after the first man. And who tried to pin me down as some sort of Eve? Bad news is best served with food. We sit on the porch, eating cooking apples from Dad's local market. As we wait, I explain that I am no Newton. I can't answer all your questions. Yeah, Dad has some problems, but they don't have to be yours. We share empty door knocks, side glances, fears that we've tried to squeeze into equations, hot confusion, darts aimed at our mothers' heads, unread books, and silence. My porch cupboard is overflowing. I've been collecting books for both of us since you started to refuse them. since the lawyer, since the restraining order. I admire your defiance on days when I don't have looped conversations with a man on the porch who seems to think that we're closer than we are. You're the apple of his eye, and I am the messenger. I want to tell you things that I've had to tell myself, but it feels like I'm still falling from this tree. I offered my silence as compassion, but now you're 15 years old, and I see that I've failed. Finally, I dropped the books off at your house. I'm no Newton. I don't have the answers. I'm no Eve. I don't have the knowledge. Everything's overflowing. There's no space left. So now I'm stood at your door, bent over a bag of books, hands rough like bark, asking you to read them, read the books, or just keep them. You'll find the answers, and I forget how quickly teenage boys grow. My eyes now level with your school collar. I notice the bulge of maturity in the center of your throat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a nice note to end on. I think when I knew we were doing a series on home, I slightly worried if all the poems would be quite fraught. But actually, all of the people tend to actually find the beauty and those sort of touching familial moments of home. And I guess it feels really obvious that your brother and your family are so intrinsically linked to your idea of home, Keisha.
Yes, definitely. How do I unpack that? I think it's something that I've come to find as a true privilege. Like I used to have, I'm very careful about who I let into my house anyway. But when I've had people come round, they'd be like, oh, it's really warm, or it's really nice, or like as soon as they come in, my mum's offering them food. And I was always confused by that. I was just like, why is that so odd? But then I'd go to other people's houses, and like, I remember having an argument with a friend because I said, is your mum in? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, what? I was just thinking, you can't come in the house and not immediately, like I walked around the house, found her, said hello, was chatting to her, made sure she had a cup of tea. Because I was just like, you can't just come into a house and not acknowledge who's there. But I didn't realize that that's not how everyone operates. But for me, yeah, the two are linked, like, and yeah, like I think growing up in a family house, it's a communal space. Like I don't mind that we have such a weird like cabinet in my living room that I find very ugly. Like I love it. I don't have this kind of want to redress the house or make any kind of statements or put myself on the house, because it's not about that. It's about the people who inhabit it. And as long as we share it and have good memories in it, I really don't care what it looks like. So yeah, I suppose it's more about the fact that it houses the people that I love than like the physical space itself.
Yeah, which is definitely, again, like a very, not just Caribbean, but definitely a very Caribbean way of looking at it, and also a South African thing and a Latin American thing, and any sort of immigrant that we find in this country of ours. Where the home is just so much more communal, and people might be coming in and out, and you know, even like I always, you know, I'm an only child and I grew up just with my mum and dad, and so when I first went to Ghana, I remember being like, oh my god, all these people have this claim on this space. But then I kind of realized actually maybe that was a good thing, that maybe not just sharing, it was beyond that. It isn't that I am sharing with you, it's that we are just here together. Mm-hmm. And the space doesn't necessarily have to belong to anybody but us as a family. Mm-hmm. And that is, yeah, really powerful. And actually looking back, like we had aunties in and out and cousins coming to stay with us for like 6 months at a time, you know, they're fresh to the country. And I think it's important, I think, to feel that community sense, that sense of community, just because then, I don't know, I think it does you good. And you can get that in lots of ways. You can get that from religion, you can get that from family, you can get that from friends. But I think if you're lucky, you can get that from just the space you're in every day, mm-hmm. which a poem looks at so beautifully.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And only as you were reading, we're both from Leeds, both from up north, but both, so many little Guyanese touches.
Yeah,
Nice.
like I'm so looking forward to hearing Malika's reading, but my mum adores your collection and the Seed. I got it for her, and she just sat and just devoured it in one sitting. Like, yeah.
Wow. When you said point to broom, I kind of looked at mine by the door there. I was like, I wanted to go and take it and be like, here it is, you know, because I have to seat my house. Like, anybody coming from Guyana knows, please bring me my point to broom, you know.
It makes me laugh when I see it decoratively, you know, in people's houses, because I'm like, no, you need to use that. It's really good. It's better than the normal broom.
Yeah. I'm going to phone you, actually, because I need to find out from your mum where she gets her cars ripped, because I need to make some pepper pot for Christmas.
Okay.
So I'm going to... Your mum would know.
She would, yeah.
Oh man, how many times have I been chatting to someone and they'll be like, just give me the phone to your mum. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And also I will say that going to people's houses and not saying hello to their mums stresses me out so much. I actually can't do it anymore. Just gonna put that out there. If you're inviting me to your yard, let me know. Show me your mum and your dad, even the dog, and then I'll be able to relax. Okay, thank you so much, Keisha, one more time. That was absolutely wonderful. We're going to move on to our commissioned poem. So I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, but Apples and Snakes have basically commissioned 5 poets, 1 poet for each of this series, each of the episodes of this series, to work on a specially commissioned poem and poetry video. And this week we're with Yussuf M'Rabty. Yusuf M'Rabty is a music producer, poet, and founding member of Young Identity and Inner Voice Poetry Collectives. His art represents the mindset of a first-generation British-born musician, relearning his history and culture and trying to find his place and a universal language, which is something I think so many of us can relate to. It brings together the excitement of wanderlust, the melancholy of being an outsider in both homeland and motherland, and is a multicultural medley which pays tribute to the diversity of Manchester, which is just a great city, I will say. So I'm really excited. Let's watch it together.
The Sunday angst stains me. An intense sense of boredom amplified by documentaries that I couldn't stand until I longed for them years on. Otis Redding, Lady Smith, The Selector, Sony CD changer, subwoofer, and no matter how loud, it would only clash with the sound of the TV, rather than drown it out. Worked hands strike mustard congos like backsides. My dad beat rhythm into me. He would clasp my wrists like drumsticks and bang now grooves till they throbbed. He could sense my resistance, like I sense his disappointment, yet I'd let him carry the enthusiasm for us both. Though I'd play Don Becks on my own, I can't let him be proud, no, he'd just get carried away. By year 9 I'd repurposed all my school books for lyrics. Pen twirling in my fingers, den building in my bedroom, balaclava in my Lego box, brown letters from prison, taping Heartless from pirate radio. We forgot we were children. My family have always had a way of coexisting, while keeping distant. We hug when someone dies, I run when things get real. I spent the last 10 years avoiding home. It's all expectations and frozen meals. It's all Peter Pan syndrome and surface convos and clashing ideals. I'd hate home less if I didn't live there. Mum says don't treat your home like a hotel. Stay. I never do. These days I practice silence and become invisible in my room. I leave at the first whiff of opportunity and return only if I have to. Home is numbing familiarity. Home is becoming a house to me. I found it more in the space between kick and snare, or the millimeters between lines on my page. I feel it more hearing Yussuf M'Rabty or Mahmoud Binya, or visiting Morocco for the first time since I was 8. Sat with my uncles conversating off instincts rather than language. I feel it when choking on sawdust, hands dry as my breath in my granddad's garage. Grandma spent her first nights alone since marriage. She doesn't know what home is now, and I'm terrified I've missed out.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Yusuf. Hopefully you're watching us right now. That was lovely. I'm just thinking a lot about the collage of it, and that sort of idea that home can be sort of fractured in some way, but also really, I don't know, also really pure, like even though it's hard to see, like you can sort of get through to that. And I thought the collage was something that added to that. Yeah, I don't know, is there anything in you guys' heads having listened?
Yeah, I love the kind of combination of the collage and the staticness of the collage with the beat, you know, and then the voice, and it was really good because I think the staticness of the collage and just these two movements enabled you to really concentrate on the words and the beat. It was quite head nodding, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting for me because Yusuf is my poetic brethren. We used to be in Young Identity together in Inner Voice, and yeah, I've just not heard his work in a while, so that was really beautiful just to be transported back to that. But I completely agree, like I loved the retro vibe of it. It felt very tactile in its aesthetic, like you were opening up a scrapbook. I loved the line, I lingered on the line of like, my dad beat rhythm into me, because I feel like it just captures that kind of, it's the ambivalence, isn't it, of those memories at home that maybe are not that positive, but you managed to put a positive spin on it anyway. So I thought that line was really beautiful in doing that.
Definitely. And it's, I think, you know, looking back and memory and how that all links with our notions of home, because, you know, our notions of home will change as we get older and as time goes on. Yeah, it's something, it is something as poets I think we have to really interrogate, because that's the nature of poetry a lot of the time, looking through memory and looking back. But so often those memories involve other people, and they involve things that, you know, what is truth, especially when we're looking at home, what is truth when we're looking at family? Is our truth the truth? Does it need to be the truth in a poem? I don't know, just all of these all of these big, murky, heavy thoughts that, you know, both of you are writers who look back a lot and who bring other people into their work a lot. And I can imagine you're both sort of sitting in that all the time. If I am, then you guys definitely are. Right, I think it is time for our second and final poet, the wonderful Melika Booker. It's every time I've done these, I've been so pleased, just because not enough poetry in my life anymore, but this is gonna have to do for a while, and I'm very happy that it is with you guys. So Malaika, are we ready?
Yep, I am.
Amazing. Melika Booker, get to know if you don't know, is a poet and theatre maker of Guyanese and Grenadian parentage, and the founder of the writers collective Malika's Poetry Kitchen. Look up that list of alumni because it's pretty incredible. She has been shortlisted for the OCM Booker's Prize, the Seamus Heaney Centre Prize, and the Forward Prize. But she's also recently won the Forward Prize for Best Single Poem. She has been published alongside Sharon Olds and Warsan Shire in Penguin Modern Poets series. I love that book, actually, so please go and get that, with two other faves, Warsan and Sharon. Malaika was the Douglas Castor Cultural Fellow in Creative Writing at Leeds University, and is just brilliant. Is also, her birthday's like a week after mine. She's also a Libra, and I take that as a sign. Keisha, your birthday's in as well. Look at that. All the best poets are Libras. That is a fact that I will not be dissuaded on. But yeah, we are going to have Malaika read some poems for us now, and I'm very excited. Please take it away.
Oh, thank you. It was so gorgeous to hear Keisha's work, and I was here like recognizing some of the emblematic things and cultural references in her poem. I'm going to start off by reading. I changed around my set. Some of it is in conversation with Keisha's. And Keisha did a poem about fish, and I'm going to start off reading a poem called Brixton Market. I would stand at market stores and watch her take days to pick, how she would test the okra, bending their tips, placing only the ones that snapped into a brown paper bag, the way she scrutinized the yam, feeling and weighing it in her palms, planting picked one by one like an artist selecting her tools. Flawed produce would be haggled to the last, and sometimes she would turn her back and walk to get her way and make her point. I pulled that shopping trolley into the stench of meat shops, waiting as she pointed to red slabs she wanted. How many times would she point and wait to change her mind? I would stare at the goosebump boiling chicken hanging from the ceiling, the cow foot and severed pigtails. I tried to hold my breath at the fish stall as she chose the kippers, and we waited for the snapper to be cleaned. At Quick Save, each can of baked beans was vetted for dents, each egg delicately lifted and searched for cracks. I would learn that this is how my grandmother taught her, kneeling in the bush, uprooting dasheen on the family land. She too, hawk-eyed, and tested each provision to know what was ripe, ready, and good to cook. This second poem is called Warning. Some great-great-grandmother told her daughter, never let no man hit you and sleep. Pepper the food, boil hot water and throw. Use knife and make clean cut down there. Use cutlass and chop, and then go to the police. Each daughter told over and over like brush your teeth till it stick. How my mother runaway man with cutlass chase him. How my gran used cutlass on table to explain to her man, don't lose your blasted mind and raise that hand to me. And so we're shape molded and made hard. I remember my aunt kicked her man out after her child was born, cut him dead like rotten wood, after he used her like boxing bag, kicking her womb as she lay on the floor. That day her blood boiled through swell eye and bust skin. She knew he could not sleep, and he knew she wanted to kill him bad, chop him dead. 2. Raised in London soil and Guyana sun, I never understood the need for cutlass, where it came from, till I visited Grenada, a place where man fist pound woman flesh like kneading hard dough. I see bold strength knock girls out flat when she man full of rum and carnival. How Ronald bust lashing woman ass every Friday and Saturday night, kicks you down, bust your tail, and next day is black eye and bruise as Pauline clings onto Ronald's foot, saying she loved him through each blow. I understand. 3. I never knew I had it, thought I was soft, till that night my friend could not drive and I offered him my bed to sleep, and I felt something in his look, he and I alone in that room, and my blood raised up, my pores swelled. I went to the kitchen, took down that knife, marched upstairs and told him, I'm cutting it off if you lose your mind. Don't think it, and if you do, don't sleep. Prayer. My mother tells me your womb will dry and shrivel up. I dance through life deaf, no child planned in my party. Ages, aches, slow her. She prays for grandma on a child's lips. She wants to touch her future, but each year there's no baby.
Thank you so much, Malaika. It's funny. I thought of the middle poem, the Cutlass poem, a few days ago, because I was watching the new, you know, Steve McQueen's new films. I'm doing a project around it, so I was watching those small series, and there's one called Lovers Rock, and hopefully it will have aired when this is airing, but if anyone watches it, you'll know why I was thinking of that line about, you know, I didn't think I had it in me. But yeah, there's a bit with like a shard of glass, and I just was like, Malika's poem. Yeah, in a big way. But what I think all of those poems have in common is that hint of not quite violence, but also like a hardness that I really enjoy, that comes out whether you are, you know, snapping tips of okra or grabbing a cutlass from under your bed. And it's something that, yeah, so many of the women in my life have, that I always want to have, but something that you just have, Malaika, that I love. And I just think it's brilliant to see that in the poetry.
Yeah, I have it in the poetry. Let's be clear. I'm sure it's there, but my family always say like I'm the softest. They're like, you're so soft. You're the softest. You don't have the child's genes, you know.
But
so,
does it come out?
The poem to it.
Does it come out when you cook though? Because I feel like like you're someone who doesn't want people in her kitchen.
No, I don't mind, but I love to feed people. I love to cook for people, so I love people to eat. You know, I mean, if you're in the kitchen, you know, you have to do things the Caribbean way. You know, if you're in the kitchen and you're not doing things, you know, the Caribbean way, then you can't be in my kitchen. Or I'll be telling you, you know, like you need to put some seasoning up in there. Like you can't just put that in the oven just to dry, you know. So yeah, I'm very particular about the way things are done.
When you come back down to Brixton, and do you still go to the same places you went when you were a kid?
Yeah, I mean, what's really sad is that I mean, I lived in Brixton since I came from Guyana in '81 in Brixton, and we went to the same places. So I went to the same kind of market stores to buy my food, and they were handed over from, you know, generation to generation. And so when I come back to Brixton, inevitably something's gone. You know, there's like a space, or there's a different kind of shop where that space that you went in with your aunts to buy was. So that's kind of different. I'm hit by the memory and the future, like kind of, or the reality, or the kind of shift and change in terms of the gentrification.
Yeah, definitely something which again is a big part of, I think, our relationship with home, especially in a place like Brixton, where literally like a couple of days ago I was reading about, you know, they're building a new like 20-story tower there, and activists have been trying to, you know, not let it happen, but it's been voted through. And it's like, well, what does this do to the sense of home? Because so often it's, you know, these immigrant communities that are at the forefront that are being swept away. God, anyway, could dive into that for hours. More poems, please, Malaika.
Okay. My father's letter. I picture you writing, eyes stained, glazed with untreated cataract, writing during power cuts by kerosene lamps or candles, scraping your life between the faint blue lines of faded yellow paper. Mum said my brothers got their letters, but being boys, they will not respond until it's too late. They will speak to gravestones of regrets. I got the letter, 9 folded A4 pages, blaming yourself for slammed doors and bad choices, telling stories of your dad playing silly games, shouting up drain pipes, who's down there? And you would shout, who's up there? Asking who's down there, which you now know were your dad's shy attempts to create tender moments. I don't recall those mistakes. I recall riding your shoulders, your night stories. I spent years as a little tomboy modeled on you. Lately, I've become cold. Could be the winter or damp in the room, your letters put off till tomorrow. And a year later, I watch the paper and pen, adding the letter to yet another thing to do. And this is the Little Miracles, which is just kind of one, the best single poem for Forward. I still can't say it, but yeah. The Little Miracles. After Winter Night by Thomas Transomer, translated by Robin Robinson. Since I found Mother collapsed on the kitchen floor, we siblings have become blindfolded mules, harnessed the carts, filled with strain, lumbering through a relentless storm, wanting to make our mother walk on her own again, wanting to rest our palms on our left leg and arm like Jesus. But constellations do not gather like leaves in a teacup. So what miracle? Of what blood? Of what feeble wishes do we pray? Happy no nails, hammer plywood, building a coffin to house her dead weight. Happy her journey crawls as we, her children, hold on like drought holds out for rain. Learning what it is like to begin again. Start with the dog, the cat, the date, the year, the stroke, the brain, the fenced-in walls she struggles to dismantle brick on brick. She cannot break this, we reason, watching her left hand in her lap, a useless echo. We chew bitter bush, swallow our howling storm, reluctantly splintering under the strain of our mother's ailing bed rest. We smile at each of her feet, right hand brushing her teeth in late evening, head able to lift without the aid of a neck brace. Her offspring's names, Malika, Philip, and Kwesi, our chants repeated over and over, as if staking us children as her life's work, her blessings, showing how much we are loved. The day she sings, walk with me, O my Lord, over and over. Walk with me, O my Lord, through the darkest night. And I sing with her, my tones flat to her soprano, just as you changed the wind and walked upon the sea. Conquer, my living Lord, the storm that threatens me. And we sing and sing until she says, Malikes, please stop the cat wailing before your voice make rain fall. And look how the weather nice outside, eh? Then we laugh and laugh until almost giddy. Our mood light momentarily in this sterile room, where each spoonful of pureed food slipped into her mouth like a tender offering, takes us a step away from feeding tubes. And we're ever so thankful for each minuscule miracle.
Thank you so much, Malaika. It was just so beautiful. I think I'm thinking a lot about how your best single poem just touched on so many of the things we've been talking about today. So like family and even food and our connections and our relationships and lineage and religion and just all of this stuff. But I'm quite curious as to where you started, like what was the thing that started the whole poem off? And it's also quite a long poem. There's so much in there. So yeah, what was the thing, what was the catalyst that set you off?
Well, interestingly enough, I hadn't been able to write about my, I think usually I write from memory, and this is something that's ongoing. So I hadn't been able to write about it, but I also hadn't been able to write. And so I had this commission, it was commissioned by Adam Lowe and Yvonne Redwick for, they were guest editing Magma magazine. And so they commissioned all these poets and put them with therapists or counselors, and I worked with Lowie, and she's an academic, and so I've been doing this collection on funerals and wakes. So we talked a lot about funerals and wakes and the process of grieving, and there was one little conversation that we had about my mum, and we talked about when people are ill, in that kind of situation with Alzheimer's or stroke or all these kinds of things, how when we sit with them, we're never present. So we're usually in the past, we're usually sitting with them, but we're in the past of seeing them how they used to be, because a lot of stuff has shifted for them. Or we're in the future kind of thinking about their death, but we're never there. And so in the summer, I spend the whole of the summer kind of caring for my mom. In New York. So every day I cook her food and bring it and we eat together and stuff like that in the nursing home. And that summer, for some reason, I thought I'm going to be here. So each visit, when someone says something and you're aware of it, so you're there and you're thinking about my mom young, or I'm thinking, oh, she can't do this anymore, and I'd stop myself and be like, I'm gonna be here. And then I had to, the commission deadline was, for the end of summer, so I started kind of writing, and I was talking to my buddy Karen McCarthy-Wolf, and she said, you're writing around and around, and I think it's because you need to write a poem about your mom. So that's where the poem came from. And so it was just really writing about being present. It came out of that action, that came out of this kind of anecdotal conversation. Yeah.
Oh, that's so true as well, especially because, in so many of our cultures, death is also such a big part of home, and grief and those processes, I think, because we come from cultures where those processes are so big, they start before death, and they don't really end sometimes. I feel like, when my grandmother was, she was in her 90s, but it was from when she was about 90 years old, and I became aware, she's old now. I would find myself just swinging back and forth between the past and the future, and knowing that, a funeral when someone's that old is a big thing. It reminds me a lot of I think I interviewed Marlon James, and he was talking about how he's obsessed with present language, because so much patois from and Creole, and loads of native African languages and native Caribbean and Latin American languages are based in the present in a way that like English and French or Latin languages just aren't. And I never really thought of that until he'd articulated that. And I was like, well, what does that do to a mindset of people if we are in the present when we speak? And what does that do if you go somewhere else and you know another language? Or even if I'm speaking in patois to one person, but I'm speaking in English to someone else, like what does that do to the way you're seeing the world?
And I think what happens if you're in the present with someone who slips into dementia sometimes, so they're in the present with you, but they're in the past, but you're trying to be present for all their manifestations there, and then sometimes abruptly they're in the present, and because you're in the present, you're catching it. Because I'm in the present, I caught that she told me you can't sing, which means that she's present now, because it's a thing in my family that, every time I start singing, people go, oh God, no, really, that's why you're a poet, so that was caught by being in the present.
That's beautiful. And that poem feels very present. I think like all the best poems do, you there's nothing but the poem in that moment, and I think that's why I still love it so much. You said you had one more poem for us?
Yeah. I thought I'd finish with a poem called Points of This Reckoning, and it's about home now, and it was written during the pandemic. Being stuck in our home, at the desk, I decided to write about anything that came up, and so I was looking outside my window, and this bird lands every day at 4 o'clock. It lands on the fence and walks around, and I noticed it, and I thought, I don't know what to write today, so I'll start with the bird. So this is called Points of Reckoning. 1. Outside the poet's window, a black and white bird stalks the concrete fence daily like clockwork, his black feathers resplendent against the grey aging concrete. 2. The poet wonders if this is a symbol, and if yes, what is the bird symbolic of? 3. What omen is the bird delivering, strutting outside the poet's doorstep like a postman? What premonition? What message? 4. The poet wishes she had a visa to decipher the bird's prophecy. 5. The poet reaches out to her dead aunt, wishing she was alive with her tea leaves, dream, interpretations, and answers to every sacred message sent, but receives no answer. 6. Today, wise Windrush elders like her aunt are dying. The news runs amok with these disproportionate deaths. 7. The poet heard whispers circulating that these elders harvested dreams of phlegm-soaked threads, embroidering throats, but ignored the literal connotations of these visions, projecting them onto the Windrush deportations, a costly distraction. 8, the citizens mark their whole house and those of their carers with orange chalk, but to no avail. Death suffuses their lungs like cheese fermenting. 8, the poet marvels at the furtiveness of this virus, its pugnacious nature. 10, the phantom made many West Indians in the diaspora styling themselves, sighing, "Duppy, no who fi frighten." 12, the poet's sister-in-law is one of the brown-skinned workers whose job has radically transformed to key from unappreciated to homage songs and applause. 13, the poet's sister-in-law states, Brooklyn has the highest body count, says, no one collects the bodies. They are told to put the corpse into another room and lock the door. Is this the same for the whites, the poets ask? The bodies, the bodies. The orderlies are weeping, fatigued, not even able to deal with so much death. 14, long ago, before funeral parlors, West Indians kept their dead bodies at home and washed and prepared their dead for funeral. Someone sat with the body, so it was not alone. Back then, the body was buried quick, quick. 15, in Chapeltown, policemen circle young men like rabid hyenas. The poet watches at 4 p.m. like clockwork. They begin to circle. 16, the poet asks, Bird, did you come as a messenger about this hunter situation? Is that why you stalk? 17, apologies, Bird. The poet humbly mumbles, this is my projection onto you. I beg you, grant me a visa to be able to read your vision.
Thank you so much. Oh, that bird. Although it does make me smile in a weird way, because I just think, are you immigrant in the UK if you don't have an auntie, a cousin, a friend who is telling you about dreams and what and birds and like, yeah,
and dead fish like Keisha's.
Oh my God, yeah. When my grandma came to the UK, she hated it, but she was alarmed at how many just blackbirds there were everywhere. She was like, there's so many, I don't like it. And I was like, oh my God, of course, like where you're from, you know, the birds just aren't all grey and black. And she just was like, it's a bad sign for the whole country. She's probably right, to be honest, considering how we're doing. Thank you so much, Malaika. That was absolutely beautiful, that whole set. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here with me and to giving me some light on not even a day in a year that often has not had as much light as one would have hoped. Yeah, I guess just before we go, I'd like to say a couple of thank yous to Apples and Snakes for having you down, to both of you one more time. To everyone listening at home, one of the joys, I guess, of this pandemic has been the opportunity to just stay in your yard and be able to travel all over the world, all over the country, and to experience art from people who, you know, normally logistically it'd be harder to access that art from. So thank you for being part of this process. If you aren't subscribed to the Apples and Snakes YouTube channel, please do, and then you can be informed about our next gigs, not just the at-home series, but all of them. Next week we will be with Kai Miller and Shagufta Iqbal. Very excited. So yeah, again, like I could talk about them for ages, but I won't. You just need to come back next week and experience that with us then. Before we go, I might just ask you both quickly, what's one thing about your home, whichever home you want to pick, you can, that you wish people would know? And is two questions. One thing about your home that you wish people would know, and is there anyone out there who writes about home that you would just like to shout out that you think they do it really well? Because why not end sharing the love? Keisha, let's start with you.
That's an interesting question that I'd like people to know. I'm very proud of my tea cupboard. I always tell people about my tea cupboard, so I'm going to do that now. Yeah, we've just got like it's two cupboards actually. It's overflown now. Just dedicated to tea, because that's how we feel about it. It's important, and it's like any illness that you have, tea is the way. There's always a cure. So I implore everyone to do the same and get themselves a cupboard full of tea. So that's also in response to the first question. And the second one, who would I shout out? Immediately, Kai Miller came to mind, actually, who you've got coming next week. But yeah, I just love his poetry, and it definitely makes me think about my sense of home in that micro level, but also macro. I just really like the way that he talks about his culture. And my dad's side of the family are Jamaican, but I'd feel like I don't necessarily have access to it as much. So I really enjoy reading his work, and it kind of comforts me in that way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Malaika?
That my house has to be kind of tropical kind of temperature. It has to be kind of like so kind of like, I feel like I want you to walk into the Caribbean. And for this birthday, what's happened wonderfully is that every day someone sent me plants. So the house actually feels and looks like, and some of the plants are big enough, like palms by a hammock. So actually the house is feeling more and more as if I'm walking outside. I leave Leeds and I'm walking into the Caribbean. So that's the first thing, kind of creating work at home. And then the second thing, I would name 2 Caribbean women writers, because I have to be extra named too. Lorna Goodison, I think she writes about home beautifully, and there's some beautiful poems about, you know, in Hearties particularly, about home and about just women and about Jamaica. And then I think Grace Nichols, who writes really beautifully about firstly Guyana, but in our latest work, writing about England and plants and the environment here. So I think those are 2 really poets that I would shout out, that I just kind of, you know.
And that's beautiful. I love all of the people you have mentioned. And yeah, if you haven't got yourself some plants or some tea, get those plants, get those tea, because I don't think I would have survived lockdown without either of those things. Thank you one more time, and hopefully see you next week.